To further explore and understand British Romantic poetry as well as the Romantic movement across Europe, it's necessary to understand a profound epistemological shift that took place in European thinking. Um, for much of the neoclassical time, the 18th century, the 17th century, the scientific revolution, etc., people were very much concerned with the phenomena of nature. And they saw these things as existing independently in and of themselves. One of the important revolutions that took place in psychology and philosophy in the late 18th and 19th century, and we see this a lot in German Romantic writers and philosophers such as Immanuel Kant, is the idea that the natural world exists, the human mind exists, but they don't exist independently. That the human mind animates and gives spirit to the world around us. This is a very important idea in Kant, that the human mind, the soul, whichever terminology Kant wishes to use, plays an active role in the perception of nature. When we read Hume and writers like this, the human mind is primarily passive. It does not create perceptions, it receives perceptions. Romantic writers and philosophers would view it differently and say that the mind plays an active role in the composition of the natural world around us. And this will be very important and an important theme that Romantic poets will explore. Within the British tradition, probably the most philosophic of the Romantic poets is Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And any understanding or study of the early Romantics necessarily includes a reading of his famous text, the Biographia Literaria, in which he seeks to explain some of the differences between the Romantic worldview and poetry and things that have preceded this. And one famous quote from the Biographia Literaria is, "Imagination is the living power and prime agent of all human perception." So this is very important. Whereas neoclassical writers would believe that there is an objective world and that mankind can measure this world and share these experiences, for the Romantics, the experience of the world is something deeply personal. This is why sensibility is important and emotion is important, because the Romantics are not concerned with an objective reality, with a rational reality. They are concerned with an imaginative reality viewed through a creative mind. And I'll discuss this a little more when I get into Wordsworth. But this idea of imagination is extremely important. Imagination over objectivism. Objectivity is very important in the Romantics. And to illustrate this, I would like to discuss a little bit about one of my favorite poems, Ode on Aggression Urn by John Keats. I would need an entire class to break down this poem and explain it. I'm not going to read and discuss it all, but there are a few sections I would like to mention in reference to this idea of imagination. So in this poem, John Keats is viewing a Greek vase that's at the British Museum. On this vase, he sees a scene from Greek mythology, which shows a Greek lover running after his beloved, and they are frozen in time because they are on this vase. So he's reflecting on this aspect, this idea that for all eternity there is this beauty, this beautiful moment frozen on this vase. So to begin, he writes, "Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape, of deities or mortals, or of both, is in Tempe or in the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loth? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on." So as you can see, he's engaging this object with his imagination. Keats writes, "Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter." He's allowing his imagination to become fully engrossed with this object, with this urn, in order that it become a part of him, in the same way that Burke is going to write about astonishment. He's allowing this feeling of astonishment settle in which he loses himself and his identity entirely in this object, this timeless object, the urn, that he is viewing. At the end of the poem, Keats writes, "O Attic shape, fair attitude, with braid of marble men and maidens overwrought, with forest branches and the trodden weed, thou, silent form, dost tease us out of thought, as doth eternity." So he's describing this fleeing of this ecstatic feeling. Romantics love this feeling of ecstasy, that moment where all of nature or a part of nature completely enters the soul and causes a tremendous feeling of joy. But of course, there's always a melancholy feeling because these moments of joy, they can't last. Cold pastoral. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain, in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, "Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know." There are many ways to parse and understand this final line. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. What I would like to remark is that this is an inversion of a neoclassical belief. Plato famously wrote, "Truth is beauty." Plato is writing in this context about the beauty of mathematics, and because mathematics contains deductive truth, Plato believes that these deductive truths are beautiful. With the Romantics, we see an inverse, a change in this relationship. Rather than truth being beautiful, it is beauty that makes something true. And this speaks to the growing sense of subjectivism that we see in the Romantic aesthetic and Romantic poetry. And this is represented not only in Keats, but in many other Romantic poets as well.